Hey everyone! ChatGPT Taylor aka Taylor here. Welcome back to the channel. Today will be a continuation of the If the Disventure Camp cast were series. This series takes a look at what would happen if the characters from Disventure Camp were put into a much different situation. I haven't made this kind of video in a while, so I decided to give it another try. If there are any ideas for this series that you would like to see me play out, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And with that, let's get started. Before I begin, make sure to like and subscribe if this video is to your liking, and make sure to comment down below if there's anything that you would like to see going forward. Today's topic is something that I suggested in a previous video, which is, what if the Disventure Camp cast were Pokemon? Before I go any further, I just want to make one thing clear. I am not very knowledgeable on Pokemon. I don't hate Pokemon or anything like that. I just didn't watch Pokemon or play Pokemon while growing up. But that's not going to stop me from making this video. After many hours of googling and reading through dozens of Bulbapedia pages, I managed to match each Disventure Camp camper with their corresponding Pokemon based on their actions, personalities, appearances, and perception from the community. I'll be going through each camper based on their placement during their original season. And with that, let's begin. Let's start at the bottom with Will. Will wasn't an easy person to associate with a Pokemon. After a lengthy search, I settled on Gimmighoul. Apparently, Gimmighoul is weak to Dark-type Pokemon, which coincides with Will being afraid of the dark. Additionally, when in their roaming form, Gimmighouls are extremely timid, have a tendency to run, and do not manipulate others. That sounds like Will to me. Next is Drew. When I thought about Drew, I tried to find a Pokemon that is completely silent, which wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. But then I thought about it for a little bit, and I settled on Pachirisu. Why did I choose Pachirisu? Well, as I searched around, I found that there's a subsection of the Pokemon community who feels that Pachirisu is overloved. And I feel like Drew is perceived in a similar way. Even though I love Drew's character, I feel like there's a decent number of people in the community who think that Drew is overloved considering that he was the second person voted out of Season 1. Sorry Drew, but at least you'll always have me rooting for you. Nick is next. For Nick, I thought about picking a posh Pokemon. But there's not much that comes up with you Google posh Pokemon. So after a bit of searching, I settled on Purigly. I mean, look at them. They have the same facial expression. And according to the Bulbapedia, Purigly only does work when they have to, and would rather stare someone down. I don't know about you, but that sounds a lot like Nick to me. Now we have Lill. Lill's most memorable moments, outside of her interactions with Fiore, were when she started the fire in the intro, when she cut the ropes during episode 2, and when she accurately shot Dan, Jake, and Drew's glasses in episode 1. So I started thinking, what Pokemon can make fire, cut stuff, and shoot accurately? And through a series of articles and Bulbapedia, I settled on Entei. Entei appears to fit all of these qualities. Entei is a fire-type Pokemon, is capable of learning the cut technique, and has high accuracy on their fire-type moves. And Entei's color sort of matches Lill's vest, which is a bonus. For Ashley, picking a Pokemon for her would have been a lot easier if there was a cowgirl Pokemon. Since Ashley is a farm girl, I considered picking Miltank because Miltank is pretty much a cow, but the Bulbapedia put a lot of emphasis on the quality of Miltank's milk and I don't like the connotation of associating this with Ashley. So instead, I went with Ponyta. Ponyta is basically a pony, and ponies can be found on farms. Ponyta is also known for being a fast runner and jumping high, which Ashley can also do. And Ponyta also has flames attached to them, which can be an allusion to Ashley's experiences with fire. They just seemed like a better fit than Miltank. Sorry Miltank. Dance was one of the first campers that I assigned a Pokemon to, but this might be a bit controversial. I decided to match Dan with Magikarp. From what I've seen, Magikarp is widely seen as one of the most useless Pokemon in their base form. And from my time in the Disventure Camp community, I've seen people refer to Dan in a similar way. Now personally, I don't think Dan is useless, and people are definitely going to debate Dan's place in the Disventure Camp series. But based solely on what I've seen regarding audience perception, there is definitely a section of the Disventure Camp community that views Dan in a similar way to how people view Magikarp. Sorry to all the Dan fans out there. I'm just the reporter. Don't shoot the reporter. Here's a fun one. It's Gabby. This one was tough, and I had to consult the Disventure Camp wiki page for assistance. But I eventually found one, and that Pokemon is Blaziken. Now, I definitely didn't choose this Pokemon based on their appearance. It was tough trying to find a Pokemon that I can strongly associate with Gabby, but Blaziken does have a few connections to her. For one, Gabby owns pet fireflies, and Blaziken is a fire-type Pokemon. Gabby owns pet birds, and Blaziken is based on a chicken, which is a bird. And Blaziken is known for having strong kicks and leaving their opponents blackened. And considering how Gabby beat up Derek and gave him a black eye in the Season 1 finale, I would say that Gabby fits that quality too. Not the strongest association, but I think it's good enough. Another tough one was Grett. Finding a match for Grett took longer than expected, but after some research, the choice was clear. And that choice was a little Pokemon named Ninetales. Canonically, Ninetales actually competed in a beauty pageant, which is an experience that they share with Grett. And behavior-wise, Ninetales is known for being vengeful and often curses those who mistreat them. Sounds like Grett to me, especially after the debacle in Season 1 when Gabby pushed her into the lake and Grett yelled back at her. Now for someone easier, let's talk about Tom. I had one Pokemon in mind for Tom, and it fit pretty well. And that Pokemon is Lucario. They share a similar dark blue color palette, which is a good start. And Lucario is stated to be able to predict the movements of their opponents and track their quarry, which Tom may have been asked to do while he was a spy. I'm not knowledgeable on a spy's everyday duties, but I wouldn't be shocked if Tom was asked to do that. Jake was the first camper that I assigned a Pokemon to, and I decided to match him with Whismur. According to the Bulbapedia, a Whismur will cry when they sense danger, and when they hear themselves cry, they will cry even louder. You could match this with how some of Jake's peril is self-inflicted. An example of such is episode 10 of Season 1 where Jake could have gone to Tom to talk about Ellie's claim that Tom already had a boyfriend, but instead shut off communication with him despite agreeing with Tom earlier on that they needed to communicate more. This led to Jake casting the third vote needed to vote out Tom, causing their abrupt breakup. Additionally, Whismur's cries are known to cause all-day headaches for those who hear it. And considering how some of the other campers have talked about Jake since this episode, notably Ellie, James, Ali and Aiden, I would say that Jake matches that quality as well. Next is Alec. This one is more of a joke association, but there's still some relevance. I decided to match Alec with Gardevoir. I know that at first glance, they don't seem to have anything in common. But there is one trait that they share that I think trumps all other traits. In the Pokemon community, if you ever look at lists of the most attractive Pokemon or the lists of the sexiest Pokemon, Gardevoir is almost always on these lists. It's clear that a lot of people view Gardevoir very highly with regards to attractiveness. And from what I've seen, the Disventure Camp community shares the same opinion about Alec. Sorry Alec, I know you're more than just an attractive librarian, but the community seems to love you for that, and that's why you're matched with Gardevoir. Tough luck. One association that isn't a joke was with Ellie. I was lucky to find the perfect Pokemon to match with Ellie, and that Pokemon is Vulpix. They have a similar hair color, so that's a plus. But more importantly, Vulpix is known to be good at manipulating, which Ellie is also good at considering how she manipulated an entire elimination ceremony to get Lake eliminated. And as an added bonus, Vulpix is capable of using a move called Dig to dig themselves a hole. This is perfect considering Ellie dug herself into a hole during Season 1 when she inadvertently helped Alec and Fiore take out a physical threat while also turning Jake completely against her. Good job Ellie. Now we have Fiore. Fiore's character can be easily described as someone who is short, but intelligent. And a Pokemon that I found to match those traits was Snivy. According to the Bulbapedia, Snivy is only 2 feet tall, making them pretty short. And they are also described to be intelligent with a calm, collected demeanor. This makes sense considering how confident Fiore is when put under pressure, such as when Lill and Ashley called her out during episode 5 of Season 1, and when she manipulated Tom into thinking Jake was in danger in episode 10 of Season 1. Not a bad fit if you ask me. To cap off the Season 1 campers, we have Miriam. It was not easy to find a matching Pokemon for Miriam, and I had to look at the Disventure Camp wiki page for inspiration once again. And after some thought, I decided to match Miriam with Scyther. Both of them have green as their primary color, which is a good start. And as far as their demeanor, Scyther tends to go under the radar since they can camouflage while hunting, and they're good with knives considering that they have 2 sides at the end of their arms. This matches with Miriam's under-the-radar gameplay considering she never received an elimination vote at a traditional elimination ceremony back in Season 1, and Miriam did do knife throwing in high school, so she matches Scyther's skill with knives as well. Overall, a good match for the winner of Disventure Camp Season 1. Now let's move on to the Season 2 campers. Oliver was a difficult camper to match with a Pokemon, because there's not much information on Oliver that I can relate to Pokemon. And after a lengthy search, I decided on Piloswine. Piloswine has big hair and shorter legs, which could be used to describe Oliver since he's one of the shorter campers in the series. Additionally, Piloswine is described to be capable of surviving harshly cold environments. And considering that he had to deal with abuse from Crystal for a few episodes early in Season 2, I would say that Oliver is also capable of surviving harshly cold environments. Not a bad comparison if you ask me. For Kai, I felt confident trying to match a Pokemon with him because he has a very gentle, tranquil demeanor, and I figured that there had to be a Pokemon that is equally as gentle and tranquil. Now, I'm sure that anyone who loves Pokemon would be able to find a better Pokemon to match Kai, but the one that I found that seems to be a pretty good fit is Comfey. Both of them are green, and Comfey is stated to emit a fragrance that can soothe and heal others, and I'd like to think that Kai's tone and actions have been able to soothe and heal others, such as how Kai's words help Maggy become more confident. Again, I'm sure there's a better Pokemon out there, but for someone that doesn't really know about Pokemon, I'm still happy with this pick. The process for matching Connor to a Pokemon took less time than I thought, even though it might not seem like a solid match. I decided to match Connor to the Pokemon known as Spritzy. Spritzy is known for releasing scents that people would use instead of perfume, and since Connor owns a perfume company, I felt that this was a fitting match even though they share no physical traits. Also, Spritzys are commonly associated with royal women who carry them around everywhere, and considering how Connor always tried to stay near Riya, I think that's another sign that this match is pretty good. At least, until Riya turned away Connor in episode 3 of season 3. But hey, nothing's perfect. When looking at a match for Maggy, I wanted to find a Pokemon that was big and strong, but also had a timid appearance. Again, I'm sure that there's a better match out there, but the first Pokemon that caught my eye was Bewear. Bewear is pink, just like Maggy, and is also big and strong. Even though Bewear is described as a very dangerous Pokemon, most of the danger comes from the fact that Bewear's strength is capable of hurting others to the point of causing serious injury. Maggy is definitely a nice person, and I know that she usually means no harm, but there have been moments where she has caused harm. She rocked the boat in episode 1 that caused Rosa Maria and Lake to fall, she punched Lill in episode 4 which gave him a black eye, and Crystal mentioned in episode 4 that Maggy sent 5 boys to the hospital. Sorry Maggy. I know you're a good person, but this is the match that I found. Nothing personal. With Yul, I wanted to pick a Pokemon that knew how to dance, since Yul became famous due to his dancing skills. There were a few dancing Pokemon that I found, but I ended up settling on Kirlia, who dances when they become happy. Also, according to the Bulbapedia, Kirlia takes twice as much damage against poison-type moves, meaning that Kirlia is weak against poison. And considering that Yul was quickly poisoned by a wild mushroom in episode 5 of season 2, I think it's safe to say that he's weak against poison as well, so that's another way that these two match each other. It's probably one of the better matches I've made so far, to be honest. For Tess, I wanted to choose a Pokemon that was happy, perhaps with an affinity for art, since the current Tess is happy and likes art. Unfortunately, there weren't many fitting options that I could find for an art-based Pokemon. So I had to resort to finding a Pokemon that fit Tessa's old persona. And because of that led me to Gothitelle. They have a similar color palette, and they have a pretty similar expression, so that's pretty close to a visual match. Sorry Tess, I wish I had the Pokemon knowledge to find a happy Pokemon for you. But it just didn't work out that way. For Lake, the traits that I wanted her Pokemon to embody were her diligence, intelligence, and willingness to fight. And after a decently long search through the list of fighting-type Pokemon, I settled on Minfu. The Bulbapedia notes that Minfu tends to seclude themselves in the mountains to help them focus on their training. Their dedication to their training can be compared to how Lake was dedicated to her studies early in Season 2. And from a visual standpoint, Minfu is both red and light yellow, which matches the colors of Lake's wigs throughout the series. Yes, I know that Minfu's red is lighter than Lake's red, but it's still red. I tried my best. Please go easy on me in the comments. As for Karol, this one was pretty easy. After a short search, I matched Karol with Voltorb. This is entirely based on their matching personalities. According to Bulbapedia, Voltorb has a volatile temperament and will explode if agitated or bumped. And considering the amount of times that Karol has gotten upset at something in the series, I think it's a decent comparison. Also, Voltorb is stated to have zapped many humans, so you could say that its interactions with humans may not be the best, similar to how Karol admits that she gets along better with animals than other humans. But hey, at least Karol can still go to the animals for support. For Allie, I'm a little embarrassed at this pick, but I felt like I had to pick it. I decided to match Allie with Lopunny. No, this is not because Allie wore a bunny suit while on the show. Well, it's not solely because of that. The main reason why I picked Lopunny is because of Lopunny's demeanor. Lopunny is described as constantly monitoring their surroundings and springing away when it senses danger. This can be compared to how Allie pays close attention to how the viewers perceive her after her Season 2 appearance and how she's now trying to tailor her game so that she won't actively receive negative comments. So, this comparison has more to do with their matching personalities, but I would be lying if I said that the bunny aspect had absolutely nothing to do with this matchup. Rosa Maria's Pokemon match might be surprising, but I think it can be justified pretty well. I decided to match Rosa Maria with Arceus. Now I'll admit, Arceus and Rosa Maria share very little physical traits. But this comparison goes deeper than that. When I started looking at Rosa Maria's character, I noticed that she was a Libra, which fixates on balance. And when looking at Arceus, all of their base stats are at 120, making them one of the most balanced Pokemon in existence. That's the main reason why I matched the two of them together. It also helps that Arceus shows compassion in return to those who treat it with equal kindness, similar to how Rosa was so willing to help out others during the game, such as Lake and Riya. For Hunter, this comparison is probably one of my favorites, and I'll explain why. I decided to match Hunter with Swoobat. Swoobat's Grey Wings match Hunter's sweater, and Swoobat is actually a very powerful Pokemon, being powerful enough to destroy rocks. This can be compared to how Hunter was powerful enough to win several immunity challenges, even if some of them were by luck. But there is one more comparison that I think seals the deal. According to Bulbapedia, one of Swoobat's moves is called Attract, which causes the target to become infatuated with the user. And considering that this move has 100% accuracy, you could say that Swoobat is very good at making people attracted to them. You could compare this to how Hunter managed to get Ellie and Tess to fall in love with him, even if it was just for a little bit. There wasn't much about Aiden for me to make a good match. But I do remember that he sleeps with a teddy bear, and that was a good starting basis for me. That memory is what led me to match him with the Pokemon known as Stufful. Not only is Stufful an allusion to a cute teddy bear, but Bulbapedia notes that Stufful's cute appearance, mannerisms, and fluffy fur make it very popular. You could say the same thing about Aiden, except instead of fluffy fur, it's his half-black, half-white hair. To his credit, Aiden has a very nice design, so I think this comparison does have some merit. As for Riya, this was one of the easier matches to make. I decided to match Riya with a Pokemon known as Starmie. I really like this match, not from a physical standpoint, but from a concept standpoint. Starmie is obviously based on a star, and Riya is a movie star, so that's a decent match. And on Bulbapedia, it states that Starmie causes headaches on people when approached, and based on what I've seen, it seems like Riya also causes headaches on people when approached. I can think of at least a few people that feel this way. Aiden definitely feels this way since she left him dangling from a cliff. You'll probably feels this way since he wanted Riya to get slapped in episode 3 of Disventure Camp All-Stars. And Silly Billy probably feels this way too, as he said similar things in pretty much every video that Riya is in. Haha. You're awesome, Billy. If you're watching this, hi. Hope you are doing well. And for the last camper of the day, we have James. It was difficult to find a good comparison for James. The one moment that I kept replaying in my head was when James poisoned Lill during episode 5 of season 2. So I started looking through the list of all poison-type Pokemon, and after peering through that list for a little while, I found the one that I think is the best match. And that Pokemon is called Nidoran. Outside of being able to poison people, Nidoran is also stated to have unique muscles, which I would say that James also has. Nidoran also tends to listen for the sounds of approaching enemies, which you could equate to James keeping his guard up when Karol returned and eventually catching her plotting to split up him and Aiden. Unfortunately, James wasn't able to keep his guard up enough to notice Jake, Ashley, and Fiore plotting to take him out. But hey, I think winning season 2 is more than enough to make up for his early exit. And that about does it for this video. What did you think of the video? Do you agree with the Pokemon that I matched to each camper? Do you disagree? If there are any Pokemon experts watching this, which Pokemon would you assign to each camper? Either way, please let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like the video, click subscribe if you really like the video, and for some ending words of wisdom. Don't pick on people with glasses, because one day, you might need them around in order to start a fire. Thank you, and farewell.